Objectives. At the end of the course, the student will be able to understand about database security, know about audit trail and database security. Security refers to the protection of data against unauthorized users. Database security is an important issue in database management because of the sensitivity and importance of data and information of an organization. Database security deals with various aspects of protecting the database content, its owners and users' data. The database administrator, that is DBA, is responsible for the overall security of the database. There are many aspects of the security problem that are listed: legal, social and ethical issues, physical controls, policy-based issues, operational problems, hardware control, operating system support. The DBMS must provide techniques to certain users or user groups to access selected portions of the database without gaining access to the rest of the database. Authorization. Authorization is the process of giving rights to the user for access to a system or objects of the system. Authentication of users requesting access to objects are also involved in the process of authorization. Authentication. Authentication is a mechanism that determines whether the user is an authorized one. The simplest form of authentication consists of a secret password which must be given at the time of opening the database. The three main aspects of database security are secrecy or confidentiality, integrity, availability. Secrecy or confidentiality. Secrecy will protect the database from unauthorized users. Check whether the users are allowed to do the things they want to do. Integrity. Integrity will protect the database from authorized users. Check whether the users are trying to do is correct. Availability. Authorized users must be able to access data for legal purposes when necessary. Threats to databases. Any situation or event that will affect the data or files in the database is called as the threat to the database. The threat may cause loss of data integrity, loss of availability, loss of confidentiality, loss of privacy, theft and fraud, accidental losses, loss of data integrity. It causes invalid or corrupted data which will affect the operation of an organization. Loss of availability. It means user cannot access the data or the system or both. Loss of confidentiality. It means loss of protecting or maintaining secrecy over critical data of the organization. Loss of privacy. It means loss of protecting data from individuals. Theft and fraud. If any database is lost, it will affect not only the database environment but also the entire organization. Accidental losses. It can be unintentional threats including human error, corruption, or leashing of software and damage to hardware. Security controls. security controls or technical countermeasures to avoid, counteract, or minimize loss or unavailability due to threats acting on their matching vulnerability. Types of controls: flow control, inference control, access control. Flow control. Flow control is the process of managing the rate of data transmission between two users to prevent a fast sender from overwhelming a slow receiver. Flow controls are used to regulate the distribution of information among accessible objects. A flow between two objects occurs when a statement reads values from one object and writes values into another object. Inference control. Inference control mechanism is to protect the data from indirect detection. Information inference occurs when one set of data items to be read by the user can be used to get the other set of data. Access control. Access controls are responsible for ensuring that all direct accesses to the system objects occurs based on modes and rules fixed by protection policies. An access control system includes subjects or users, access objects, that is data, programs, operations, read, write, run. Access controls can be classified into two categories: discretionary access control, mandatory access control. Discretionary control. The data owner determines who can access specific resources of the data objects. The user will typically have different access rights on different objects. There are few inherent limitations regarding which user can have which rights on which objects. Mandatory access control. Each user is given a certain clearance level and each data object is labeled with a certain classification level. A given data object can then be accessed only by users with appropriate clearance. Mandatory scheme tends to be hierarchic in nature and rigid. Audit trail. An audit trail is a file of records or database in which the system automatically keeps track of all operations performed by users on the regular data. An audit trail provides security to the database. Audit files are located on the individual application servers. An audit trail is a record of all changes to the database along with the information such as changes made by the user and exact time duration of the changes. A typical audit trail record might contain the following information: request, that is source text, terminal from which the operation was invoked, user who invoked the operation, date and time of the operation, railwares, tuples, attributes affected, before images, that is old values, after images, that is new values. Data encryption. Data encryption is the process of storing and transmitting sensitive data in encrypted form. The main goal of the data encryption is to convert the readable text to unreadable text by using an algorithm. In encryption algorithm, original data are called the plain text. The plain text is encrypted by subjecting to an encryption algorithm in which the inputs are the plain text and an encryption key. The output of an encryption algorithm is the encrypted form of the plain text, which is called as ciphertext. The details of the encryption algorithm are made public, but the encryption key is kept secret. Some of the types of encryption are simple substitution method, public key encryption. Simple substitution method. This is the simplest substitution method in data encryption, where writing out the alphabet in some order to represent the substitution. Traditionally, combination of alphabets may be created as keyword and write it first, then write all the remaining letters in the alphabet in the usual order, removing repeated letters in the keyword. For example, consider zebras as keyword, then the encrypted letter for each alphabet is as below. Example, plain text is computer science. From this table, the encrypted text for the plain text is BLJMTQAO PBFAKBA. Punctuation and blank space is omitted and the text is encrypted. Public key encryption. In the public key scheme, both the encryption algorithm and the encryption key are made freely available. The receiver can convert plain text to ciphertext, but the corresponding decryption key is kept secret. The decryption key cannot feasibly be deduced from the encryption key. Thus, even the person performing the original encryption cannot perform the corresponding decryption if he or she is not authorized to do so. SQL Support. SQL supports discretionary access control only. Two more or less independent SQL features are involved. The view mechanism allows the database to be conceptually divided into pieces in various ways so that sensitive information can be hidden from unauthorized users. Granting and revoking privileges. Granting and revoking privileges to the users is the responsibility of Database Administrator, that is DBA, of the IDMS. The method of enforcing discretionary access control in a database system is based on the granting and revoking privileges. The account-level grant privileges include the following: the create schema or create table privilege to create a schema or base relation. The create view privilege to apply schema changes. The alter privilege, adding or removing attributes from relations. The select privilege to retrieve information from the database by using a select query. The modify privilege to insert, delete or update tuples. The alter privilege, adding or removing attributes from relations. The drop privilege to delete relations or views. The relation or table level grant privilege includes the following: select privilege on R to read or retrieve a tuple from R. Modify privilege on R to modify, that is update, insert and delete tuple of R. references privilege on R to reference relationship R. Syntax of the grant privileges. Grant all privilege list on table name, column comma list, view name, column comma list to public user list with grant option. Meaning of the clauses is as follows. All granting all the privileges for the object for which the user issuing the grant has grant authority. Privilege list grants only the listed privileges. On, it can be a table or a view that specifies the object on which the privileges are granted. Column comma list. It restricts the privilege to the specified columns. If it is not specified, grant is given for the entire table or view. 2. It identifies the users to whom the privileges are granted. Public. The user with valid user ID and password are granted with privilege. User list. The users specified in the list are granted with privilege. With grant option, the user has the authority to grant the privileges that were granted to him or her to another user. Example 1 for grant privilege. Grant select on employee to public. This specifies all the users are authorized to perform select operation on the table or relation employee. Example 2. Grant select, delete, update on employee to John. This specified that the user John has the authority to perform select, delete and update operations on the table or relation employee. Example 3. Grant select, delete, update on employee to John with grant option. This specifies that the user John has the authority to perform select, delete and update operations on the table or relation employee and has the capability to grant those privileges to other users on employee table. Revoke privilege includes the following. In some cases, it is desirable to grant a privilege to the user temporarily. For example, the owner of a relation may want to grant the select privilege to the user for a specific task, and once a task is completed, then revoke that privilege. Hence, a process for revoking privilege is needed. In SQL, a revoke command is included for the purpose of cancelling privileges. Revoking privileges is done by means of the revoke statement. Syntax of revoke privilege. Revoke all privilege list on table name column comma list, view name column comma list from public user list. All, revoking all the privileges for the object specified. Privilege list, revoke only the listed privileges. On, it can be a table or a view that specifies the object on which the privileges are removed. Column comma list, it restricts the privilege to the specified columns. If it is not specified, revoke is given for the entire table or view. From, it identifies the users from whom the privileges are removed. Public, the user with valid user ID and password are revoked. User list, the users specified in the list are revoked. Example 1 for revoke privilege. Revoke select on employee from John. This specifies the user John is no longer authorized to perform select operation on the table or relation employee. Example 2. Revoke create table from John. This specifies that the system privilege is removed from the user John. Example 3. Revoke all on employee from John. This specifies that all the privileges are removed from the user John. Summary. In this class, we have learnt about general consideration about security, controls and